Good afternoon, everyone. This is Queenie Clem with Queenie's Book Talk and Reviews, and I am your literary ambassador. And today I have a special guest on my channel. Please introduce yourself and tell us about you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Letrise Carter. I am a published author, and I have 3 books in the Lucy Mason series, as well as a book out that's titled Deceitful Secrets, that is in the thriller romance. And I am also the CEO of Sisters Place magazine.
Okay. What is your genre and what attracted you to this genre?
Well, this particular genre, I wrote this by total accident, and it's new adult fiction. I'm always, writing in thriller, romance, fiction. And for some reason, this hit my spirit, and I wrote it. I was in a class taught by Walter Mosley, author Walter Mosley.
Oh.
We had, yeah. So he gave us a homework assignment that we had to write a short story for 30 days, nonstop. And he was like, you write a different short story every day. And then at the end of the class, you had to pick one of those short stories and, take it and put it into the story. And this story, the Lucy Mason series, it hit me. It hit me with everything that I've gone through these last 2 years, because I am a recent 2-time breast cancer survivor. So Lucy's Worth, each of the books have a very strong message, because they hit home with me mentally, emotionally, and physically. Lucy's Worth, being a breast cancer survivor, you go through a phase while you're going through treatment where you don't feel worthy, because you're fighting this cancer. And that's where that title Lucy's Worth resonated with me and was birthed. And then Lucy's Faith, I struggled with my faith going through treatment, because the first time around in 2009, it was really hard, and I was fighting, arguing with God back and forth. Why me? Why is this happening to me? So I went through a very dark phase. So I struggled with my faith. So that's how Lucy's Faith, the name title, that was birthed. And then Lucy's Heart, you fall in love with yourself again, and you forgive all those that hurt you. And for me, how that resonated with me was, I had to forgive the first set of doctors that I had, because I didn't get adequate treatment the first time around. Because when I went over to Cancer Treatment Center of America and discovered that the cancer that formed, a whole new cancer that formed on the left, literally 7 months after I finished first round of treatment of chemotherapy. They said they could have caught that. All they had to do was do a PET scan, and they would have seen that cancer was forming while I was finishing the last 4 rounds of chemotherapy. I did a total of 12 rounds of chemo.
Wow.
And I did 60 days of radiation. Now, the first 8 sessions of chemotherapy, I felt like my body got nuked for no reason, because that following year, on the anniversary of being diagnosed on the right, I was diagnosed on the left with a completely new cancer. So I was hurt and I was angry. And, I was very angry at the first doctor in my local hospital. And I literally cussed that woman completely out, because I was mad. Because I'm like, how could you miss this? I literally just got done with chemo. So I got angry because I stopped writing, because I was so mad, and I had to go through a healing process. So a friend of mine, she was like, well, you know what, why don't you, keep your head up, therapy, talk to someone, go to support. And for me, writing has always been a channel for me, where I can just, write about it and I'll feel good, I'll feel better. So writing, it wasn't enough. So taking that class last year was a blessing in disguise, because he was like, just write your thoughts, write what you feel. And 30 days, he said, short stories. He said, I don't want you to write anything long, short stories every day, a different short story every day. So I wrote about 20 different short stories. And this particular series stuck with me because it resonated with my spirit and everything that I was going through. So I could reach back and pull some things that I was going through. I even reached back to my childhood and, put some stuff in there so that because I said, well, you know what? God must want me to write this story because I've been trying to write Deceitful Secrets 2, Truth and Lies, for the last 3-4 years. And I couldn't. I was started and couldn't finish it because I guess it wasn't time. And I finally realized it wasn't time for that story to be birthed. It was time for this Lucy Mason series because everything that I was going through, it resonated in these 3 short stories. So Lucy's Worth, me finding my worth again, feeling that I'm beautiful again, because I went through that whole phase with chemotherapy. The first round, I felt completely ugly, disgusted with myself, and I got dark with the chemotherapy. I developed some skin irritations with the chemotherapy, and having the bald head. I was out at a store because I was really hot. I took my hat off for a second, and there was this Black brother. He looked at me in such a disgust that I was like totally ashamed. And I got so mad because I felt really ugly at that point. I walked out the store. Because I'm like, people are staring at you, and you already felt ugly. So I felt worthless. So I left, and that took a lot, and I never let anyone see me the first round. When I went through chemotherapy the first time, I never let anyone see me, without my hat or my scarf. I was embarrassed. So I felt worthless. So that's how that Lucy's Worth came into play. I wanted to paint that picture so that young women and mature women will see that you're beautiful no matter what. No matter what you're going through, what you're fighting, you're still beautiful. And you just have to surround yourself with a positive people, and continue to stay strong in your faith and talk to someone. And that's what I had to learn in going through my worth, rediscovering my worth. And that's how that whole trail into Lucy's faith and how I changed the age. Like I said, I stumbled on writing this in this genre because originally it was for women like myself, women in my age range. But that, I guess God had another plan, because that age range for Lucy Mason series is age 18 to 26.
Okay. Now tell us about the Lucy Mason series and briefly tell us about each book or each story.
Okay, so the Lucy Mason series basically follows a young lady. She starts out at 18 years old. She wants to be on her own so bad because she's the youngest of 3 children, and she doesn't feel like her parents give her their undivided attention like they do her 2 older sisters. And she feels because her 2 sisters get they get all the attention. They're very smart, very beautiful. She feels worthless. She doesn't feel beautiful. She has a very low self-esteem when she starts out in this series. And she wants to get on her own because she thinks, oh, I'll just get out there on my own, do my thing, and I'll be me. I'll be in control of me. But she will discover in all 3 parts. The first book, Lucy's Worth, she's going to discover that, life is not what it's not a pretty picture. It's not easy. She works, she drops out of high school, gets a full-time job. Her mother gets her on with her, and she works, but she meets a young man who is going to change her life, where she's going to have to make a decision whether or not she walk away from this relationship or she will end up dead. So he takes her through a whole whirlwind where she literally has to choose life or death in book 1. And pretty much learning her worth, learning that she's beautiful, and learning her value, that she doesn't have to belittle herself to be in a relationship. Most important, she has to love herself first. So that's the first book in the series, Lucy's Worth. Lucy's Faith. In Lucy's Faith, she gets a fresh start, a second chance because of the decision that she made in book 1. And she does not have a faith yet. Her sister is rooted and grounded in being a Christian woman, and they take her under their into their home, and they guide her and direct her, and they take her through therapy because she was in an abusive relationship in book 1. And in order for her to heal in book 2, she has to talk about it and she has to get therapy. Otherwise, she's going to treat all men the same way that young man treated her. She's not going to be able to identify what a real, what true love is, or even what her worthy is. So they take her through a series of going through therapy and rediscovering herself. And her sister makes her go back to school because she teaches her how important it is to have an education. So she grows. You'll see her grow up in book 2, in Lucy's Faith, which I was really happy writing it. It was very emotional writing that particular story, Lucy's Faith, because as I, put her through the ups and downs, questioning God, trying to discover, and her sister invited her to church every week, and she would say no every other week. And when she finally did, come to church, she started coming on a regular basis, and she was going to therapy. The therapist is actually a member of the church. So that they started praying with her at every session. So, it gets into your spirit. And she eventually she gives her life to Christ. And it's the way that the spirit hits her, because she had been coming to church for a while. And every Sunday when the pastor opened the doors, she would look the other way, because her sister and her sister's husband would look at her like, come on, you gonna go on down there to join the church. But she would look another way to, like, because she would feel them looking at her. So
Yes.
So, but when this particular Sunday, there's a particular song playing, and the song that's playing is the song that you heard in The Color Purple, the song that they sang. And that song always hit me and always made me cry, always made me feel thankful and joyful. And so I put that song in this particular story so that it would hit her the same way it hit me. And she gave her life to Christ, and she wrote this beautiful part, a beautiful note to God at the end. So it's a beautiful story about her finding her faith, and she actually forgives her mother, because her mother was really cruel in book 1. And then Lucy's Heart, she's a little bit older. She's 24 in this book, and she's independent. She's graduated from she got her high school diploma, as well as an associate's degree in business administration, because of her sisters. Her sisters really rallied up and helped her to mature and taught her what love is. And her sister's husband encouraged her and told her what Black love is, what a Black man should be saying, and what is not appropriate. And he really, he was really that big brother to her. And she meets a young man. His name is Drew in Lucy Mason's Lucy's Heart. And this young man, they vibe. He goes to church, and he's in school. They're both in school, so they're on the same level. He's about 2 years older than her, and he woos her, but she fights it in the beginning because she's afraid. She's afraid that he's like her ex, who was, by the way, her first. So she has to get past the comparing him to the first guy. And she's still in therapy, so that her therapist helps her to identify, but she still at the end of the day has to make the decision whether or not to open her heart. And the young man, he doesn't give up on her. He teaches her how to pray. He takes her, they do a lot of the church has a lot of singles events, and they participate, which she embraces. And in the end, she finally gives herself to him. She finally accepts his love, and they fall in love, and it's a happy ending story, like a little happy ending story where she falls in love, where she finds true love.
Yes. Yes. What was the inspiration behind the series?
This inspiration behind this series really was, I have a lot of nieces, and I've watched what they've gone through and everything that I've gone through, and I'm like, and I'm constantly giving them advice about, you're a very beautiful young lady. You're only 20 years old. You have your whole life ahead of you. Don't make stupid decisions. And and that's how I talk to my nieces. And it's like, it's a stupid decision. If it's a smart decision, I would say that's a good decision. But they've made some crazy decisions, and they always say, "Well, Auntie, well, you did." I said, "No, I have never done that." Just some of the things that they've gone through, and some, being in an abusive relationship. And I'm like, why are y'all in? That is not love. So I wanted to like really, that helped me to inspire this series as well, because I'm like thinking of my nieces. I have 28 nieces and nephews. So yes. So I'm like, they're young, and they're the millennials, and the generation, what is it, Z or whatever, or X. And I'm like, I need y'all to get it together, because they're having kids, and they're passing that mindset down to they're allowing their children to see that mindset. I'm like, that's a cycle y'all need to break. And I'm all about breaking generational curses. I was the first in my family to break one of our family generational curses. And I'm like, yeah, no, it's too many of y'all, and y'all having babies. I need y'all, I need to break this curse. So this series is really, is really to help my millennials, my young adults, make better choices, especially the young ladies, to see that there's value, in you. But don't allow a man to talk down to you. Don't even talk down to yourself. See that you are worthy. You are worth so much more. And stop settling for less than what you deserve. And so that's what, just so somebody can like you. That was, my whole, that's a part of that whole inspiration behind this whole series, is pointing that message, and me trying to reach my nieces and nephews. And I said, well, I can go a step further. I can reach not just my nieces and nephews, but I can also reach a whole big audience. And that's, and that's why that whole new adult genre, I was like, okay, God, you want me to write in this genre? This is not my genre. I write for adults. I write fiction, romance, and thriller. I was like, this is not, because I fought it. I fought it. But then when I stopped fighting it, I was like, okay, because the more and more I talk to my nieces, or the more and more I see them posting that foolery on Facebook and Instagram, oh my goodness. I was like, okay, Lord, let me go on and put this out. And I tagged them every time I post. I was like, the book is available. And so I told him, I'm just gonna send y'all copies. Because I'm not expecting y'all to purchase a copy. I'm gonna send y'all a copy. The adults, the ones that are in high school, I can still keep talking to them. But I'm gonna work to get these books also in high schools, and so that these young ladies can, read this. These are good examples. There's no sex scenes, and not no explicit sex scenes, and it might say I love you, or he made love to me, but no. I really want to get our young people so that they can learn their value, learn to have, believe in your faith. You got to have faith. You got to step out on faith, and you don't have to jump from relationship to relationship to relationship. And that was another thing, I kept saying, I was like, okay, you haven't taken a break. You just bouncing. You're not healing. So that was all that. Just there were so many different things that inspired this series, that I kept looking, at my nieces and nephews and God kids. I'm like, okay, I need, because y'all not listening to me. Maybe y'all read. Okay, so let me hit you with these.
What is your writing process like?
My writing process is, I'll start out with a short summary outline at first, and then I have a storyboard that I do, and I literally plot out each scene, and I plot out, like, okay, I'll put on my storyboard the action, like, okay, so what's going to be my conflict, what's going to be my resolution, and I literally plot that out on my storyboard. Then I sit down and I take my I take my summary outline, and I put my storyboard in front of me, and I look up and I'll write the summary, the synopsis, and then I just start writing from there, basically, and making sure I hit each of those plots as I'm writing. So that's my process.
Okay. Now tell us about Sisters Conversations and how it got started.
Sisters Conversations, that blog started out in 2015. It started out, actually, it's the name has changed 3 times because I've rebranded 3 times. You look at your analytics and you look at what's happening. But that that podcast got started when I launched Sisters Place online. It was a blog app. All this started out as a blog. And I was like, you know what? I like reading books. I like going to plays and indie films. And I support a lot of the indie authors and indie film directors. And I go to a lot of their stuff around town. So I thought, I was like, that'd be good for me to bring them on my showcase and interview them, as well as featuring them on my online platform. So that's how that all came to life. And over the years, as I've grown and reached to where people are coming to me, but at first, when I first started, you're going after who to have on your podcast. And there was some big names watching me, but I didn't know they were watching me, because they end up reaching out to me. And I've interviewed, I've had Timothy Kyle, Timon Kyle Durrett on my show. He plays on Queen Sugar as David West. I've talked to the young lady, I can't think of her name right now. She was one of the directors on The Cosby Show. She has her own production company. Several different actors and actresses and directors as well. And big names, authors, Victoria Christopher Murray, Kimberly Lawson Robbie, who is one of my favorite authors. Got to talking to them, and I said, okay, well, maybe it's not just for indie authors. Maybe I can just talk to everybody. So I opened that, that realm of reaching more than just indie authors, because I'm like, well, maybe the seasoned national and best-selling authors can come on my podcast and teach, kind of give some advice about this whole process of getting out there, marketing your book, writing, and share some knowledge, share some of their talent, and give some secrets with my audience. And so that's how that grew. And it kept growing and growing every year. So, we've been doing the podcast now 5 years, take that back, 5 years. So I'm excited because it keeps growing. So this year I decided to change the name to Sisters Conversation with Letrise. That was one of the branding and marketing strategies, because we're like, okay, you're an author, so put your face on your brand, instead of it being always behind the door at Sisters Place. So that was a marketing branding strategy that we did to bring this all about, and it's continuing to grow. Continue to have our entertainment segment, and then I wanted to talk about so much, because there's so much going on in our community that was one of the reasons of rebranding it. So Sisters Conversations podcast grew over the years with the support of the audience and those who wanted to be on the show. Which was, I see it as a blessing. And I always say, you never know who's watching you and listening to you, because I've had the pleasure of talking to Demaine Davis. She was one of the directors on Queen Sugar, and she's been on my show several times. So, and we always, and I connect with a lot of them, and we keep in touch. And it's like, hey, I got a new show coming out. I want to come on your podcast and talk about it. It feels really good when they reach out to you to come on your show. So I said, okay, I must be doing something right. So it's been a blessing that this podcast is now being more personable, so that I can really sit back and have that sister conversation. It's just 2 sisters on the show, just talking, relaxing, talking about what's happening, what's going on, and who's being inspired, who's being influenced and empowered. So.
Okay. Tell us about your publishing journey.
My publishing journey, I'm a self-published indie author. It was, I've grown over my first book was published in 2017, and it was a struggle. I took every class under the sun to learn about self-publishing. I made some all the mistakes that I made when I published my first book, I didn't make this second time around. So I took more classes because I was like, I didn't market my book, the first book, right, the first time how I'm doing it now. So that wasn't, a publishing mistake, not reading the fine lines on KDP. If you use KDP Select, that means you can't, your book is exclusive to KDP for 90 days. You can't upload that ebook to any other sites. I was like, oh my goodness. So, I did that the first time and I'm like, I missed out on so many different, so many other markets the first time around, that this second time around, when I spoke with other authors who are more seasoned than me, they're like, yeah, Letrise, make sure you don't check that box when you're uploading your books, for Kindle. Make sure you uncheck that box. Otherwise, KDP has exclusivity. And then if you don't remember to go back in after the 90 days is over, it auto renews. So my first book was on auto renew and I took it off. I discovered that this year around in March. I was like, wait a minute, this book is on renew. So it couldn't, because I was wondering why I wasn't seeing my book on other websites, and I was like, wow, So that was a lesson that I learned, making sure that I'm not giving KDP all exclusivity because I'm missing markets, I'm now on BookBub and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna upload the rest of my books. And I made sure when I uploaded the Kindles this time around for pre-sale, I unchecked that box. I'm like, no, because I want to get my book on everywhere there are books, I want to get my books. And learning how to promote. So I've taken some taken some classes, went to some webinars. There was some a lot of virtual classes. I took advantage of that, especially during COVID. COVID was a year of learning for me, because there was so much that I did wrong the first time. Because once I had released my book the first time for Deceitful Secrets, I thought, oh, I'll just go out there and do some book signings. Well, guess what? Not a lot of people they don't know who you are unless you are on a panel of some well-known authors who already are established, and you can borrow their audience. So I learned that. I was like, man, I made so many mistakes before. And I didn't do any promotions after the third month, after probably 90 days after my book was out. I was done, and I was like, that is not what you do. You're constantly promoting your book. And I didn't do a lot of podcast interviews the first time around. So I was like, okay. So I came up with a promotional strategy, and I developed a budget this second time around. So I'm like, I'm hitting the ground running, and I'm using every source that I have to make sure I don't make the same mistakes as before. And I even wrote a blog post about the mistakes that I made the first time around publishing my book as an author. Indie mistakes, I call it. So, and I kind of talk about it and dive in and give tips as what you should do after you publish your book. Promotion is going to be key. Reviews, getting book reviewers, and I didn't do that. That was a thing that I didn't do the first time around. I was depending on family and friends. Oh, just post a review, not knowing that book reviews are going to be key. Learning the correct way of using the keywords for your books when you publish on Amazon, Kindle. So I went back and changed the keywords on my first book so that I can be, so that my book can get discovered. And I'm learning how to use ads. So it's a lot. Those were a lot of the mistakes that I made the first time around, that this second time around, I'm like, I think I have so much knowledge in my head that I actually had to write it down. I'm like, okay, now it's time to hire a team because I can't do it all. And that was the other mistake that I made the first time around doing my publishing. I had to learn to, okay, you got to use other resources and you got to use other people. So those are some of my publishing tactics. And I always did professional editing first time around. And then this second time around, I even done it. I probably had my book over edited. The second book was edited 3 times. I was like, just want to be sure I don't miss nothing. Yes. So Because, you know, it's embarrassing when someone reads your book and they see, you know, errors, mistakes. I'm like, oh, you know, it's worth it. Invest in yourself, invest in your book. So it will pay off in the end. And you'll recoup that, you know.
Yes.
I recouped it. I actually recouped and then some for the first for the Lucy's Worth. When she was published, I sold more autographed copies than I did Amazon copies.
Wow.
And I was like, hey, I was able to take that money and pay for my edits.
Yes, yes,
So
yes.
they're pretty good. Yeah, so that's my publishing experience. I said I was going to write some few blog posts about publishing mistakes and the correct way, so that, you know, someone who's coming into it won't make the same mistakes that I made.
Okay, okay. What has been your greatest accomplishment thus far in your literary career?
My greatest accomplishment would be sharing my experience with other authors, other new authors that are coming into the game. That's one of my greatest accomplishments. And publishing this next series.
Okay, now you was talking about Sister's Place. Can you tell us about that and what's the inspiration behind that?
Sister's Place started out as a blog that was just really me reaching out to different people, writing stories, doing book reviews, and you know, seeing what's going on in the community. And that grew, and I ended up making that an online magazine at the time. But in the back of my mind, I kept saying, you know, one day I'm gonna make this a actual magazine. And 3 years ago, I launched I decided to step out on faith. My mentor, she kept saying, I don't know what you're waiting on. You've been blogging for 10 years and this has grown. So what are you waiting on? And, you know, I was like, yeah, you're right. So the inspiration behind that was the fact that I had grew my audience, I established myself, people knew who I were, and I had grown with some women that they agreed with my vision. So we decided to come together, and it was like, okay, let's do the magazine. So we put that in place. So that's how that all got started. It was just mainly stepping out of faith, because I was, you know, watching people, other magazines that I was writing for as a freelance writer. They were going digital and print, and I was like, man, I'm in these magazines. I've had some great articles in several magazines that I've written for, and I'm like, man, I'm writing for everybody else, but, you know, I still have this online platform. It's time for me to take it and make my own magazine. So I got together with a group of young ladies who are part of my team, and we launched Sister's Place as a magazine. So, and then this year in July, I made it an LLC. I was like, you know what, I got to get serious about this. And
yes,
I was like, you can do it. You know, you always have that little question in the back of my mind, can I really do this? But like I said, all the magazines I wrote for 6 different magazines, and they're big, and I'm like, that's where I got my start. So I can, you know, I stay in contact with the editors and the founders, and they constantly giving me advice and guidance. So they was like, Letrise, you can do it. We love your platform. We're not competing. And that's the blessing about it. These women, they don't see me as their competitor. They see me as their sister. And that helped inspire me to step out on faith and launch my own magazine. So that's how Sister's Place has really evolved into its own magazine platform, digital and print. Because I have a great support system and a great support of women in a tribe that is a part of Sister's Place, that we continue to bring stories that inspire, empower, inform, and educate, as well as entertain. So we still have that same vision. It didn't go away, but and a lot of times some of the my colleagues, as I can call them my colleagues, they send me some of their own writers and customers who like, hey, I want to be on your magazine. Hey, I want to write for your platform, and we share. You know, I guess you say we share knowledge, share gifts. So that's how that's been, you know, it came about, and it's been expired ever since.
Oh, okay. What are you currently working on right now?
I just started working on Lucy's Heart because I finally got Lucy's Faith off the book formatting, so I'm working on Lucy's Heart, and then I'm outlining Truth and Lies, which is part 2 to the Deceitful Secret series. And then I have on my story, I have another storyboard where I put all the different stories the short stories that I did in class, as well as some stories that have come to me because I plan to tell my own story. So I've been plotting that on my storyboard. It's called Broken Pieces of Me. That is going to be my first nonfiction book. But that's not coming out. So I gave myself a timeline that'll come out in 2023. I want to get these short stories out, and I want to take my time to write my story and share my story so that I can bless other women, empower other women, and just share my own testimony through my journey. And my cousin, several people, I polled them for the title, and they were like, Broken Pieces of Me. Everything that you've been through this cancer journey, that don't change the title. And I prayed about it, and God said, that's it. So I've been just writing. I journaled the whole time while I was going through chemotherapy these last 2 years. So I'm gonna just take those those times, tweak it, but there's a message in each of those chapters that I'll be sharing. But in between that, Truth and Lies, I'll finish Lucy's Heart. Truth and Lies will be the next series in Deceitful Secrets. And then there's a story mystery, because I want to write in every genre. I've decided I want to write in every genre. And my mentor, she said, why not? So there's a murder mystery that I want to do called A Sister's Betrayal. She was like, you and this sister, you got to put sister and everything. I said, that just came, so it's a sister's betrayal. It'll be a murder mystery. So before I start writing it, I'm going to be reading some murder mysteries so I can see how that flows. Those are just little things that I learned over this year and last year. Okay, to be a better writer, if you want to write in a particular genre, you need to make sure you're reading in that genre. So yeah, so that's what but yeah, I got a lot of stories to tell for the rest of my life.
Okay, can you read a little snippet from Lucy's World?
Yes, I can. Let me see what chapter. Let me see. Okay, so this will probably give it away. Let me set this up. This particular scene in Lucy's Worth is going to be her first time. It's going to be the first time Roger puts his hands on her, and it's gonna wake her up. It's gonna have her thinking. Yes. Okay. The first night Roger slapped me, he told me it was my fault. He claimed I made him late for work, and his supervisor wrote him up for being late. So it was my fault, as he said. I justified it by agreeing that his uniform wasn't dry in time for him to leave the apartment in time for his work shift. Roger was angry most of the time when he came to see me. I didn't understand why he would come to see me when he wasn't in a good mood. I tried to take the edge off by buying him a few beers to get him to relax. It was payday, and I'm excited about the weekend and hanging out with my man. Roger was on his way over to my apartment. He said, Lucy, can you loan me $200? Yes, Roger, I can loan you the money if you promise to give it back to me. I promise to pay you back as soon as Sam gives me the $300 he owes me. I'll pay you back on Sunday. Okay. I don't mind helping you, Roger, because we are a couple. Just make sure you give it back because I have bills to pay. It was Sunday and no Roger. He wasn't answering his cell phone or text messages. Finally, at 3 a.m. on Monday morning, there was a knock at my door. To my surprise, it was a drunk Roger. I let him inside to keep from waking up my neighbors in the building. He came inside, staggering across the couch where he sat without even taking off his coat. He looked at me and asked, "Who's been here with you?" I looked at him with a dumbfounded look. "No one has been here. You're lying to me. I can smell the presence of another man. You are drunk. What you smell is yourself. Where are you going, woman? I know you're lying to me. Roger, I'm going back to bed. You can come join me if you like to sleep off whatever it is you've been drinking." He insisted that I was lying to him. I waved him off and I walked back toward my bedroom. Roger yelled from the living room, a stream of foul language. I ignored him and climbed back into my bed. Roger staggered into the bedroom, calling my name. "Lucy, you know you ain't no prize, and definitely not the prettiest woman. I'm doing you a favor by being with you." His statement felt like a slap in my face, but I rolled my eyes at him, turned my back to him, and ignored him even more. He came over to the bed and fell face first with all his clothes on, coat too. He talked himself to sleep with slurred words I no longer understood because I tuned Roger out. The last words I heard him say were, "You are not a pretty catch, just ugly. And you ain't good in bed." I didn't dare let Roger see the tears roll down my face. I just buried my head in the pillow as I cried myself to sleep. I tried to do everything to please Roger, but each week the ridicule and the name calling would get worse. So that's one of the scenes, one of the chapters in Lucy's work.
Okay. What is your testimony?
My testimony is that I am a breast cancer survivor. I had to choose to live and fight for my life because I had stage 1 breast cancer on the right that was very aggressive, and then stage 2 breast cancer on the left that took a really big hit to my mental state of mind. Um, I I had to sit and tell myself it's not okay because I went to a deep, dark place the first year going through breast cancer treatment. And without the support of 6 amazing women that made sure I didn't stay in that darkness, they made sure I talked to someone, they made sure I got out, and they made sure I ate. They made sure, they went to treatment with me. That was a big lift up. It lifted my spirit because I was really in a very dark place. My daughter saw me come home every day and I would get in the same corner and just cry. And my testimony is that I chose to live. I made a decision that I was not going to let cancer take over, that I was not going to let cancer defeat me, and that I was a queen. I'm God's child. He didn't leave me, and he was going to get me through this. And there was that small voice that kept saying, "I got you. I just need you to cry out to me." And I did. I fell to my knees, and it was very helpful because without that, I wouldn't have made it. But that's my story. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Can readers find you and your books?
They can find me on latricecarter.com. I am on social media. I am on Instagram as Letrise C, Letrise. I'm on Twitter as author Letrise. And I am also on Facebook. My author page is author Letrise Carter, and that is Letrise. Some people always put an A and a C, but make sure you spell it right because you may get someone else. But it is, I'm all over social media. You hit me up, and you can also email me too my contact page on my website, latricecarter.com. I'm always open to talk and chat and share my ideas, give advice. Um, you know, I'm here.
Mhm, mhm. And you just gave your social media. What are your social media handles?
Twitter is author Letrise, Letrise. Instagram is just Letrise CLE, all lowercase LETRISEC. And then Facebook is author Letrise Carter. Yep.
Okay.
And I'm on LinkedIn too.
Okay.
As
Okay.
Letrise Carter.
Okay. Is there anything else you would like to add before we close?
Yes. Believe in yourself. Don't give up. And know that God will never leave your side. No matter what you're going through, you can conquer anything. And just believe in yourself. If you don't believe in nothing else, believe that you are God's child and that He will get you through it.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming in today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm glad to be on your show.
All right. This is Queenie Clem with Queenie's Book Talk and Reviews. Happy reading, y'all. Bye.